Hey, how you getting on? It's that dude from the start of Prometheus, except I stopped going to the gym and got heavily into guitar gear instead. And today I want to find out if the Sennheiser MD421 Kompakt sounds like the MD421 too. The Sennheiser MD421 Kompakt isn't that old. I think it's only about a year old at this point, because I remember first hearing about this from my friends who went to 42 Gear Street 6, which was in 2024. That was last year. I think each of the guys there got a 421 Kompakt in a goodie bag from Sennheiser, and among those was my good friend John Simons, who sent me some clips he recorded with the 421 Kompakt, and I was thinking, those sound even better than the tones I get out of my 421 too. Well, there's two major circumstances that could lead to that impression. One thing, John makes anything sound awesome. He's much better at crafting tones than myself. And the other is, maybe the 421 Kompakt is different to the 421 2 that I have here. This year I was lucky enough to be invited to 42 Gear Street 7, and Sennheiser were there again, and they handed out goodie bags, and in these goodie bags were 421 Kompakts again. This time in this retro cream color, because this is the 80th anniversary edition. Sonically, they are the same. It's just a more vintage outside. And Sennheiser were great. Really fantastic people. And when I emailed them thanking them that they gave these mics to us, and I told them I'd be comparing it to a 421 2, they even offered to sponsor the video. So this video is sponsored by Sennheiser. Thank you very much. It doesn't really make any difference for you guys because I'll be presenting graphs and just unprocessed recordings. You'll be able to make up your own mind, but it needed to be mentioned. So here's how the test is going to go. I'm lucky enough to have two Sennheiser MD421-2s, and I'm going to use both as a baseline. I'm going to compare these two to each other just to see how big the production tolerance is. Of course, that's not a huge sample size, but that's what I got. And I expect these to be fairly close to each other based on experiences I have with other dynamic mics. And I'm going to compare both of them to the MD421 Kompakt. I'll be using my Prometheus for this, the Lichtleim Audio Prometheus. It'll be going into my Zilla 2x12, the Fat Boy, which is front-loaded. That has a Creamback H and a Creamback M in there. I'll be miking up the Creamback M because it's a slightly darker speaker, and I associate the MD421-2 with slightly brighter sounds. So I think they'll match up quite well. I'll be close miking the Creamback M, and I'll be doing some room miking as well, just to have some other test scenarios in here. I'm using the Lichtleim Audio Prometheus because it has a brilliant preamp to feed switch here, and I'm using that to do some room EQ wizard sweeps so that we can look at some static graphs as well. To make sure the mic positions in this test are consistent, I'll be using a device I built for IR making initially. This is my Ghetto Dynamount. It is a camera slider on a mic stand that allows me to change the position horizontally. And I mounted a smaller slider on top of that, which allows me to modulate the distance from the cab. And I use these camera quick release plates so that I can just clip microphones in here on the fly without actually having to mess with the stand. For the MD421s, that's fairly easy because they use that same clipping mechanism. The MD421 Kompakt obviously is a lot smaller, so I had to improvise a bit with this metal plate on the quick release plate and some additional adapters. Lucky for me though, with those thread adapters on top, the microphones are pretty much the exact same height, so I don't have to modulate the height of the stand when I change out the microphones. Just clips in here, and all I have to do is make sure that the distance from the microphone to the cabinet is the same. So yeah, that's going to be the test setup. I'm going to reamp a few riffs, do some room EQ measurement sweeps, meet you back at my computer for some analysis. All right, let's do it. Right, time for the evaluation, which I'm doing at my wonderful Creative Devices laptop. What I've done is I've reamped 3 riffs. I recorded them close mic'd. I just reamped one of them for the room sounds, and I did room EQ wizard sweeps. I'm using Voxengo Span Plus for frequency response graphs, and I'm using Nugent's AB Assist 2 to switch back and forth between the tracks. You'll see here we have the 421 Kompakt track here, 421-2A, 421-2B. Obviously, those are the two 421-2s. Those are B and C for Nugent audio here, and A is the Kompakt. And the riffs, I'm going to switch to one of the 421 twos. Sound like this. So a heavy riff, we have a crunchy riff, and a clean one. And I want to compare the 421 twos to each other first. So remember, those are B and C. And we're going to look at frequency response graphs while we do that. So the graphs show us minimal difference here in the low end, and around 2K there's a little difference, but other than that they're pretty close together. Let's check out one of the other riffs for that. Really slight differences there. Yeah, I couldn't really even explain the differences if I had to. They sound very close together, as near as makes no difference. Now let's find out how the 421 Kompakt compares to both of those. I'm just going to import that track. That's blue here. 421-2B is red, and 421-2A is green. The 421 Kompakt will be shown in blue, and that is track A here. Now, let's check that out. And the difference is quite noticeable. You see that big spike at about 4,100 hertz here for the MD421 twos. You can really hear that as a whistling almost when we switch back and forth between the Kompakts and the Kompakt and the twos. Check that out again. That's a really big difference. And I did the room EQ measurements as well. Same thing here. 421-A is red in this one, and the B is green, but Kompakt is still blue. And we can see the same picture. Well, the Kompakt seems to have a bit more low end here. That's a couple of dBs. But the real difference is, how do we zoom in? I haven't used this tool in forever. Is here at about, yeah, 4,120 hertz. There's a big peak that both of the 421 twos do here that isn't so pronounced in the 421 Kompakt. In fact, it kind of dips out before 4K here, 3,800, 3,900 hertz, much more so than the 421 twos. It just seems attenuated in the presence frequencies. Everything over 4K seems quite attenuated here. In the brilliance, it pops back up here around 5.6, 6K. But that is a huge difference, and I'm really stoked that I noticed this, because I thought it was crazy when I heard John's clips of the 421. I thought it sounded much more balanced. Now, that's not to say that the 421 Kompakt is better or worse than the 421 2, or vice versa. They both have their applications. I would imagine that for lead lines or solos, this would really make them pop out. Overall, though, I personally prefer the more balanced sound of the 421 Kompakt. Yeah, for good measure, let's see if we can hear that in the room sounds as well. Okay, there'll be a jump cut here because I had some technical difficulties. Let's see if that translated to the room sounds. I'm going to start with one of the 421 twos again. That'll be 421 2A. And again, the 421-2s are very close together, while the 421 Kompakt just sounds a little more balanced overall. It doesn't have that high peak. Now surely somebody's going to be out there that claims I probably just screwed up on the mic positioning because it wasn't exact with the heights and everything. But I did a test for that too. I took one of the... excuse me. But I did a test for that too. I took MD421-2B and did a sweep for that and moved that 5 millimeters to the left, 5 millimeters to the right, and then 5 millimeters up as well to see if we could make that 4,100 hertz peak go away a bit, because half a centimeter, 5 millimeters is definitely orders of magnitudes higher than the misalignments I might have had with my jig. So this is the frequency response graph for the 421B in the center. Let's see how that looked 5 millimeters to the left, so further out from the speaker. And we can see there is some slight differences, interestingly enough, in the high mids and the presence. The 5 to 6K seems to go down a bit, although maybe not that interesting. That's pretty much what we observe when we move the speaker further outside, but that big peak is still there. Let's see what happens if I move the mic in the other direction, so further inside, and we see the inverse characteristic happening. We see the 5 to 6 kilohertz content go up a bit, but it doesn't really affect the way that peak looked. Let's see how that looked when I moved the microphone a little bit higher. Yeah, almost no difference, just minor fluctuations. Nothing as large as what we saw in terms of differences between the 421-2s and the 421 Kompakt. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm not crazy. The 421 Kompakt does sound different than the 421-2s. Sweet. So there's a few things I forgot to mention in the intro. There are, of course, some technical differences between the 421 Kompakt and the 421-2. I was told by Sennheiser that they use the same capsule, but you'll be able to tell from the size that apart from that, there are some differences in the transformer mainly. The 421-2 has this 5-position, I think it's 5-position rotary switch on the back that lets you switch in different levels of low cut. So all the way S for Stimme, which is the German for voice, that'll have the most low cut in it for, you know, the human voice. And all the way to, on the other end is M for music, Musikinstrumente. That will have no low cut in it. And then there's 3 positions in between there. Similar to what I experienced with my test of other dynamic microphones, I don't think it's all down to the capsule. I think the transformer used is part of the magic too. And I think that's probably where the differences between these mics come in, because just looking at the size, obviously this has to have a different transformer than the 421-2. Now, I'm really happy that they do sound different. I feel vindicated to an extent. I personally really like the 421 Kompakt. I think it has a nice balanced sound. I can see myself using this quite a lot. And in fact, I do want another one. The 421-2 has its applications too, though. It's gone through various revisions over the years. Obviously, this is the 421-2. This is far off from being the second revision. There were various revisions of the original MD421 over the years. 421N, U2, U4. I'm not sure what the differences in those are, but yeah, they've been along for quite a long while. So, what more is there to say? Other than thank you very much to Sennheiser for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate that. I'll be using this quite a bit. If you want to get one, there'll be affiliate links down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.